Well, Lazy Legion, it's Halloween again, and this year I think you will deserve a little treat. A treat that comes in the form of a list of tricks. Usually we try to stick to true crime and real scary stories on this channel, but today we're turning our attention towards hoaxes. Specifically, this hoax is Iceberg, created by Reddit user Silent Chatter. This chart's filled to the brim with all manner of deceptions that have taken place over the years. Some of them harmless fun, others far more sinister, with real-world consequences. As we make our way down from the clear skies into the murky waters, things will get progressively more obscure, and, for the most part, dark. It's a pretty big iceberg, so I'll be skipping the entries that don't fit with the Halloweeny vibe we're going for. I'll also be throwing a couple of my own choices into the mix too. So make sure you have that bell icon turned on, cue that iceberg tier list music, and join me as we make our way down into the abyss. Bigfoot's body. In 2008, two Bigfoot hunting hobbyists named Matthew Whitten and Rick Dyer contacted the media with a bold claim. According to them, they had just made the discovery of the century. While exploring a remote wooded area in North Georgia, they accidentally stumbled upon a Sasquatch den, home to a small community of primitive ape men and ape women. On the outskirts of the den, they found a dead male Bigfoot, which they said was 7 feet 7 inches tall and weighed more than 500 pounds. They managed to drag the carcass away from the den without being detected and put the creature's body on ice. They then immediately called up news outlets to report their discovery and sent them this photo to prove they really had found a dead Sasquatch. They added that they were going to release video footage that they had taken of the other living specimens, along with indisputable DNA evidence that this really was the missing link. Big publications like CNN and the New York Times began reporting on the alleged discovery, and Sasquatch enthusiasts around the world started getting excited that this was really it. This was the eureka moment. Bigfoots were real. Bigfoots? Big feet? I'm not sure how you pluralize it, to be honest, but one thing we can all be sure of is that this was all a hoax. No evidence was ever presented by the two men which proved they'd really found a genuine Sasquatch carcass, and the photo was denounced as a fake. Turns out that one of the men, Rick Dyer, ran a Bigfoot tours company, and this whole thing was just a publicity stunt to help him drum up business, and also for him to get his 15 minutes of fame. Hey, we're talking about him now, so I guess it worked. As for his accomplice, Matthew Whitten, he was fired from his job as a police officer for his role in this hoax. Fake celebrity deaths. If there's one thing that the internet's filled with, it's reports on fake celebrity deaths. Or at least it used to be. I remember seeing loads of these growing up. Rowan Atkinson was a common one that popped into my feed from time to time. Eddie Murphy apparently died in a snowboarding accident. To be honest, pretty much every major celebrity fell victim to this hoax at one stage or another. There you'd be, happily scrolling down your newsfeed on Facebook, and then BAM! R.I.P. Will and Jaden Smith. You will be missed. So why were these hoaxes so common back in the day? Well, for starters, they're easy to make up, and if you create a fake post about a well-known person's passing, a lot of gullible people will probably take it at face value and share it around without Google checking first. This turned out to be a much bigger problem than people realized. Hackers quickly became aware of how easily these rumors spread, and began disseminating their own fake celebrity death articles online. People would stumble upon a picture of their favorite famous face, see the breaking news headline and that big old RIP, hit the share button without thinking, and then click on the article. The link would take them to a site designed to infect their computer with malware. These posts became more than just hoaxes. They'd become scams, set up with the intent purpose of obtaining your name, address, and bank details, and millions of social media users inadvertently helped spread them. These types of scam articles are nowhere near as common as they were back in the early 2010s, but they do still crop up today, so stay vigilant. Paul is dead, and the Avril Lavigne replacement theory. So we've just covered fake celebrity death reports. Easy to disprove with a simple Google search. But then there's the other type of celebrity death hoax. The replacement theories. The two most famous ones have to be Paul is dead and the Avril Lavigne replacement hypothesis. According to these theories, both Paul McCartney and Avril Lavigne died early on in their respective careers, but were replaced by body doubles so that their labels could continue to sell records. Those who take these theories seriously like to point to changes in both of their appearances over time. Changes that supposedly occurred after their original versions died. Subliminal clues are apparently scattered throughout both of their discographies too. For example, at the end of the Beatles song, Strawberry Fields Forever, you can supposedly hear John Lennon sing the line, "I buried Paul." John himself actually said he sang the words cranberry sauce, but hey. All of the Beatles were aware of the Paul is dead hoax, and despite each member repeatedly saying it was just a stupid rumour, the urban legend still persists. As for Avril Lavigne, people point to the appearance and disappearance of various moles and blemishes on her skin between her first and second album, as well as her sudden makeover during that period. I mean, it's almost like people change over time. Like Paul before her, Avril has denied these replacement rumours on multiple occasions, and believes the theory only came about because, quote, people are just bored and need something to talk about. Dead celebrities are still alive. So in contrast to the last entries, sometimes people don't want to admit that their idol has passed away. And I understand, letting go can be hard. As such, some folks have come up with theories about how certain dead celebrities are actually alive and well. Some more believable than others. Elvis was an undercover FBI agent that infiltrated the mafia, and the feds helped him fake his own death so he could slip away into witness protection. Michael Jackson faked his death to escape the limelight, and then appeared on The Larry King Show under the name Dave soon after as a secret farewell to his biggest fans. Countless others escaped to a private island somewhere to live out their days in peace. Well, the sad reality is, no one lives forever. Celebrities especially. Those who achieve any degree of fame actually have a lower life expectancy than the average person, and the more famous they get, the shorter they're predicted to live. The pressures of fame and success can ultimately be too much for many celebrities to bear, and they turn to a life of excess as a means of escape, which, in turn, has a huge impact on both their health and wealth. It's not uncommon for them to spiral out of control and end up in some dark places, mentally, physically, and financially, with the rest of the world looking on and treating their decline as entertainment. With all that in mind, the fact that they often pass so young really shouldn't surprise us at all. When it comes to all of these dead celebrities are still alive theories, when you look into them for more than 5 minutes, it becomes glaringly obvious they're full of massive logical holes, are based on little to no evidence, and are nothing more than wishful thinking at best, and intentional hoaxes at worst. I remember there being this great commercial back in the day that played into this type of hoax, and had Kurt Cobain, Elvis, John Lennon, Tupac, Bruce Lee, and Marilyn Monroe all living it up on a secret island, hiding from passing ships and sipping on brewskis. It's a funny ad, but also perfectly showcases how ridiculous some of these theories can be. Alien autopsy. When it comes to hoaxes, is there anything more classic than a good old alien story? They're like the margarita pizza of hoaxdom. Basic, yet satisfying. But convincing images of aliens are very rare indeed. There have been a few that have fooled a sizable number of people, however. But perhaps the one that's fooled the most was the 17-minute-long 1995 video known simply as the Alien Autopsy Tape. The footage had apparently been filmed at Area 51 directly after the 1947 Roswell incident, and was touted as being a leaked government secret. The grainy black and white film shows 3 scientists in full hazmat suits dissecting a realistic-looking dead alien that was found in a crashed spaceship. The realistic footage captured the public's imagination, and a documentary investigating the tape's authenticity was made, called Alien Autopsy, Fact or Fiction. This documentary aired on Fox 3 times, with one broadcast reaching 11.7 million viewers. For over a decade, people debated whether this was a genuine government tape or not, with there being no definitive proof either way. So, Alien Autopsy. Fact or fiction? Well, it's on this iceberg, so I think you already know the answer to that. Turns out, the footage had been made by two British filmmakers, along with a few professional friends they had in the movie industry. They eventually came clean, and said that the alien was a life-size doll. Its realistic, bendable limbs? They'd been made with lamb bones that they bought at the local butcher's. The alien's insides were made up of sheep's brains and cow gizzards. To their credit, the filmmakers had recorded the footage with a lot of care to detail, making sure all of the props were authentic for the period, and even shooting the whole thing on 16mm film. Of course, some of the more die-hard alien enthusiasts out there still believe the tape is authentic, and say the government simply got to the filmmakers and forced them to go along with the hoax narrative. And I get it. It's much more fun to believe than to disbelieve. But in this case, the truth isn't out there. It's right here. And the truth is, this was just a hoax. 2012 Apocalypse. Man, this one takes me back. According to the Mayan calendar, the world was supposed to end in 2012. This one was obviously a hoax, because, well, take a deep breath. Did it feel good? Of course it did. You're still alive, pal. This man. Have you seen this man? Every night, all over the world, hundreds of people see this face in their dreams. If this man appears in your dreams too, or if you have any information that can help us identify him, please contact us. So says the famous flyer that originated on thisman.org. This has to be one of the most popular scary tales to circulate around the internet. As the story goes, the sketch of this man was created by a well-known psychiatrist in New York, who was recreating the character that kept appearing in one of his patients' dreams. Soon, the psychiatrist's other patients saw this uncanny image, and noted that they too had seen this man in their dreams, despite having never met him in their waking life. The psychiatrist passed the picture on to some of his colleagues, and soon, more than 2,000 of their patients had claimed to have dreamt about this man on a regular basis. As the legend of this man grew in popularity, he started seeping from the internet into other media. There was a reference to this man in the X-Files, and here in Japan, a manga series was released about him. Posters and flyers started popping up in major cities, spreading the story of this man to the offline world, and asking people who had dreamt about him to come forward. But although many people have claimed to have seen this man in their dreams, they're either just suggestible, or actively playing into the hoax for fun. The website and the story were both the creation of Andrea Natella, an Italian marketer. Natella admitted that this man and thisman.org were simply a marketing ploy, though he never actually said what he was marketing. So in one sense, the campaign was massively successful, because who here hasn't heard about this man before? On the other hand, it was a complete flop, because what the hell was he advertising? Given the large number of people from all over the world that either helped to spread this hoax or actively bought into it, it's safe to say Natella was tapping into something with his mysterious campaign. There's clearly something about us all collectively dreaming about the same man that really draws us in and captures our imaginations. Fiji Mermaid. This creepy object is known as the Fiji Mermaid. But before I explain what it is, let me ask you something. Have you ever seen The Greatest Showman? You know, the feel-good story of P.T. Barnum. Well, I hate to break it to you, but P.T. Barnum wasn't a nice guy. In the movie, he empowered people. But in real life, he was much more interested in exploiting them. For instance, he sometimes exhibited African Americans with birth defects, saying that it demonstrated their so-called inferiority. He also charged people to see a 161-year-old woman, who in reality was only half that age, and when the woman died, Barnum held a public autopsy for all to see. Try and make a musical number about that. In 1842, P.T. told the world that he had found a real-life mermaid, and exhibited this creature to the public. He described it as, quote, an ugly, dried-up, diminutive specimen, about 3 feet long. Its mouth is open, its tail turned over, and its arms thrown up, giving it the appearance of having died in great agony. This description shocked the public, because, up until that point, everyone imagined mermaids as these beautiful, human-like creatures. Still, its grotesque appearance didn't stop thousands of paying customers coming to marvel at this newly discovered beast. I guess there really is a sucker born every minute, like PT said, because this mermaid was nothing but a hoax. As it goes, an American sea captain named Samuel Barrett Eads bought the mermaid from some Japanese fishermen. It's believed the fisherman took the mummified torso and head of a juvenile monkey and sewed it to the back half of a fish as a joke. Well, it was a lucrative joke, because the captain paid them $6,000 for what he thought was a real mummified mermaid. This treasure eventually made its way back to P.T. Barnum, who profited from it, as he had with numerous hoax attractions throughout his career. The original Fiji mermaid was destroyed in a fire not long after, but several recreations like this have since been made. Man beef. Man beef refers to a website that appeared in 2001, one that quickly gained notoriety. As the name implies, the site claimed to be selling human flesh for the quote-unquote sophisticated human meat consumer. The site proclaimed, "We have everything from sausages and soup bones to bouillon and stock, all made with the highest quality human meats. Every cut of human meat we sell has been selected for its superb quality and flawless texture. We only offer the choicest cuts of meat." Most people heard about man beef via emails. Specifically, emails from angry, gullible folks who wanted to have the site taken down and the owners investigated. With the site receiving 500,000 hits a day, the US Food Administration were forced to look into it. Unsurprisingly, they found no evidence of any human meat being sold. In fact, there wasn't even a way to buy any food products on the site. The only thing for sale was man beef branded merchandise. It was simply a spoof site, set up by a guy with the alias Joseph Christopherson, who said he was just trying to be gross and churn a few stomachs. The site shut down at the end of 2001. Finger in Wendy's chili. Meat's still on the menu with this entry. In 2005, a woman called Ana Ayala ordered a bowl of chili at a Wendy's restaurant in San Jose. She enjoyed the first few spoonfuls, but then one mouthful had a particularly strange crunch to it. She spat out whatever she had just bitten into and looked down at it in horror. It was the partially cooked tip of a human finger, which had been hidden in amongst all the chili. The scandal drew international headlines and ended up costing Wendy's an estimated $21 million in lost business. Nobody wanted to receive a surprise serving of Wendy's finger food. The company bosses believed that Anna had planted the finger in the chili herself in order to sell her story to the media and potentially take them to court. Rather than let their brand be tarnished, Wendy's instead offered a $100,000 reward to anyone with information about how the finger got in the chili. They didn't need to pay up in the end, however. A police investigation revealed the truth before anyone could claim the money. It came to light that the finger hadn't been cooked in the chili at all. The whole thing was a scam, cooked up by Anna and her husband, Jamie. They'd gotten the severed finger from one of Jamie's co-workers, who lost it in an industrial accident, fried it in a pan at home themselves, and lied about it being in the chili. Anna pled guilty to fraudulently pointing the finger at Wendy's, and was sentenced to a whopping 9 years behind bars. She was released 4 years into her sentence on good behavior, but to this day is banned from ever setting foot inside a Wendy's restaurant. Tainted Halloween candy. There have long been rumors that if you go trick-or-treating, some despicable individual might drop some poison candy into your bag. Everyone seems to think this is something that happens, but in truth, there have never been any reports of someone being given lace sweets or chocolate by a stranger while trick-or-treating. There was a father who took the life of his own son on Halloween night using this method, so that's likely the genesis of these hoax stories. But yeah, this has never happened to anyone going door to door. Montana Zombie EAS. In 2013, the residents of Great Falls, Montana, received the shock of their lives when the local TV station, KRTV, was suddenly interrupted by the emergency alert system. No images flashed on screen, But that bone-chilling warning tone sounded off at an ear-piercing volume before an authoritative male voice made a chilling announcement.
You can hold on TV, storm tracker weather, Montana's most accurate. You flip, but they flop. You flip, but they flop. Hi, Mark Hill here for the perfect...
Civil authorities in your area have reported that the bodies of the dead are rising from their graves and attacking the living. Follow the messages on screen that will be updated as information becomes available. Do not attempt to approach or apprehend these bodies as they are considered extremely dangerous. This warning applies to all areas receiving this broadcast. Tune in to 9:20 a.m. to get updated information in the event that you are separated from your television or if electrical service is interrupted. This station will now cease transmission, so please use your battery-powered radio. Tune in to 9:20 a.m. for information.
You have made significant contributions preserving our area's history.
The message was short, but disturbingly clear. The end was nigh. Thankfully, the ravenous undead hadn't actually resurfaced to feast on our brains. This was all the handiwork of some unidentified hackers. Seeing how this hoax took place on a Monday afternoon, few people were tuned in to actually hear it unfold. But just imagine, you're home alone, going about your business, with the TV on in the background, when you suddenly hear that emergency warning tone, followed by a convincing announcement saying the dead have awoken to feast on the living. I think a fair few of us would have started putting our zombie apocalypse plan into action. Dark Web Red Rooms. The Dark Web is considered by many to be the Wild West of the Internet. The World Wide Web's shadowy underbelly. A lawless place where anything and everything goes. There are countless stories from people who claim to have stumbled upon all manner of illegal activities going on there, right under society's nose. Perhaps most infamous are the stories about Red Rooms. Red Rooms are said to be sites on the dark web where viewers can pay to watch live streams of people being killed. The things that happen to these poor souls are determined by the viewers, who contribute to the live chat and leave donations with their requests. Whatever these viewers want, they get, and the highest bidder gets to decide the way the victim is ultimately dispatched of. Just gaining access to these streams is said to cost thousands of dollars, perhaps even tens of thousands. Which begs the question, how do so many people have stories about these Red Rooms in the first place? Also, how are these Red Rooms operating? All of the secretive browsers like Tor would struggle to support livestream video, since they all run their web traffic through multiple servers. People have sold terrible things through the dark web in the past, but it just seems infeasible that they could sell tickets to a live event that would struggle to even run. At the end of the day, it's incredibly hard to prove something doesn't exist, but when the only evidence we have is anecdotes from anonymous users on the internet, I think it's safe to assume that Red Rooms are simply the subject of creepypastas, and nothing more. The Cooper family falling body photo. I'm sure you've all come across this image before. The Cooper family photo, otherwise known as the creepiest photobomb of all time. In the 1950s, the Cooper family bought an old house out in Texas. On their first night, the father of the household took this photo of his wife, mother-in-law, and 2 young sons. It wasn't until after the image had developed that they realized an uninvited guest had joined them at the dinner table that night. A falling or dangling body that hadn't been there when the father snapped the picture. They were gobsmacked. But more than that, they were terrified. Clearly, they were now sharing a home with a spirit. There was no other explanation. It's a chilling photo for sure, but fortunately, or unfortunately some might say, there's no truth behind it. If the strangely convenient composition of the photo didn't give it away, or, the fact that it's clearly too good to be true, this image is a fake. The vignetting around the picture is far too symmetrical to be authentic, and the photo has all the hallmarks of having been digitally tampered with, either in Photoshop or some other software. According to hoaxes.org, the story surrounding the image seems to have originated online around 2013. Though we don't know who created the picture, they likely inserted the falling ghost into an actual old image that they had found somewhere in order to make an art piece. Someone then came upon it online, created the fake story about the Cooper family, and because it's a genuinely creepy photo, it naturally spread around the internet. Even though the image has been thoroughly debunked, a lot of people still like to say that it's real. I'm not falling for it though. Drop bears. If you've ever been to Australia, a local might have warned you to watch out for drop bears, a breed of koala. But where most koalas are docile and herbivorous, drop bears are predatory and carnivorous, and much larger than their gentle cousins. You're bound to hear stories about unsuspecting travellers taking in Australia's natural beauty, only for one of these drop bears to jump out from a tree and begin ferociously biting and clawing at them. Very dangerous creatures, those drop bears. They always go for the throat. In reality, this is just an in-joke that Aussies like to tell tourists in order to freak them out a little bit, and plays into that whole everything on Australia wants to kill you meme. Slightly cruel, mostly funny, 100% a hoax. Lake City Quiet Pills. LakeCityQuietPills.com was the domain for that old guy's image host, a website with a sinister undertone, hosted by a Reddit user known as Milo. It's been speculated that the website, which on the surface appeared to be nothing more than a place for users to share sordid pictures, was actually a front for real-life contract assassins. These rumors started when someone found strange things in the site's coding. There appeared to be secret messages and ciphers hidden in the HTML, saying things like, "Need formed group, 8 to 10. Single operation. Delivery bonus. Gentleman's agreement insurance. Immediate need. Need 2 English speakers. Private sector at sea. HW experience a must. Recent S or SBS preferred." These cryptic messages got a lot of people talking on Reddit. To many, they sounded like job listings for hitmen. HW experience? Heavy weapons? Theories started to be thrown around, especially with regards to the site's domain name, Lake City Quiet Pills. That was an odd domain for a site called That Old Guy's Image Host to have. Some users speculated that Lake City could be a reference to the Lake City Army ammunition plant, the largest producer of small-round ammo for the US government. If that was true, then a quiet pill might be code for a bullet. Users started digging through the Reddit history of the site's host, Milo. One thing they noticed was he often talked about his real-life experiences in the military. He'd leave replies to other users, saying things like, "I can tell you from experience, piano wire is hard to pull through someone's neck. .030 to 050 stainless steel works best in my honest opinion. Don't use brass or bronze. Avoid using wound guitar strings too. They make too much noise." He also gave his detailed thoughts on the best way to dispose of a body. What's the time factor involved? Will they be missed quickly? Oftentimes, moving the body to a secure, remote area and letting it go for a couple of months, and then disposing of the bones is best. But it must be really remote. Reddit detectives concluded that Milo must have been an old contract killer, and, now in his old age, was hosting the Lake City Quiet Pills website for working mercenaries looking for jobs. Links between the site and real-life hits were drawn up. Ideas, like the name Milo standing for Military Intelligence Liaison Officer, were being discussed. All of the evidence was coming together, though obviously it was all speculative, and none of it actually proved that Milo or his website were linked to real-life assassins. There are still plenty of people who believe Lake City Quiet Pills is a merc-for-hire website, but in all likelihood, the whole story was a fabrication. The trail of breadcrumbs left by Milo and others is a little too convenient for my taste. On top of that, popular YouTuber Barely Sociable did some digging of his own, and came to the conclusion that the whole thing was a hoax, devised by a Second Life roleplayer named Trent Katsu. The whole thing was apparently perpetuated by members of the DSF forum. In all likelihood, that old guy's image host was just some shady website Trent and his friends set up, which they then all decided to have some fun with, thus birthing the Lake City Quiet Pills mystery. even if they were posting genuine secret messages in the code, you can rest assured they weren't really job listings for assassins. Jenkum. Oh lord, I didn't want to talk about this one. But here we go. So back in November of 2007, there was a bit of a widespread panic across the USA about a substance called Jenkum. This Jenkum was apparently becoming popular in middle schools and high schools throughout the country, and was being used by youngsters as a way to get high. They'd take this liquid substance known as Jenkum and inhale the fumes to hallucinate. So, how were so many broke students getting their hands on this Jenkum stuff? Well, they were making it. You see, Jenkum is purportedly a real thing. It originated in South Africa, and is made from fermented human feces. Writer Emma Guest described the making of Jenkum as fermented human sewage, scraped from pipes and stored in plastic bags or bottles for a week or so, until it gives off numbing, intoxicating fumes. These bags and bottles are sealed tightly so that the precious fumes don't escape. After the waste has festered, those fumes are then inhaled and are said to give the user intense visions and feelings of euphoria and serenity. Hydrogen sulfide, aka sewer gas, has been tested on mice in the past. And yes, it does indeed cause hypoxia, which can result in feelings of euphoria. So, Jenkum itself is likely not a hoax, and really is still used in parts of Africa to this day, particularly in Zambia. What was a hoax was that students in the USA were using it en masse in 2007. So where did this hoax originate? From what I understand, the Sheriff's Department of Collier County, Florida, issued a bulletin about widespread Jenkum use after discovering an online forum post made by a guy called Pickwick, who described how to make the stuff. After hearing about this, TV stations began reporting on it, telling parents that this was a national problem, and to smell their children's breath when they came home from school to check if they'd been using butt hash. Never thought I'd say that on this channel. As it turns out, these TV stations were full of shit. There have been no reports of students using Jenkum in the USA that year, and it remains unclear why they thought it was such a national problem in the first place. Must have been a slow news week. But yeah, Jenkum. Not even once. Hanging Munchkin in Wizard of Oz. I'm sure we're all familiar with The Wizard of Oz, right? This classic movie became famous for its pioneering use of Technicolor, but in recent years has become infamous for an urban legend attached to it. In one scene that's come to be known as the Tin Woodsman sequence, Dorothy and her companions are shown happily skipping down the yellow brick road. Off in the distance, however, something can be seen swinging in the background. A dark blob. The story goes that one of the Munchkin actors had hanged himself during the filming of that scene, and that this dark object is him, dangling from the rope. The reason this story became so prevalent is likely because of the film's VHS release. For the first time, audiences were able to rewind the movie and pause at this specific moment to analyse the background and speculate on what this sinister blob might be. But the thing about watching a VHS on a home television is that the picture quality is nowhere near the level of film projected onto a cinema screen. A lot of time had passed between when the film was screened in theatres and when it came out on VHS, so most people watching it from the comfort of their own armchairs had never seen it on the big screen. If they'd been able to, they would have realised that the dark figure in the background was quite obviously not a dangling human, and was most likely a crane. The additional fact that the Munchkin actors didn't arrive on set until after the Tin Woodsman sequence had been filmed should be enough to put this myth to bed once and for all. Still, even though we can add this entry to our ever-growing pile of hoaxes, there are still plenty of true horror stories attached to The Wizard of Oz's production. What with the terrible treatment of Judy Garland, the aluminium paint poisoning of Buddy Ebsen, and the third-degree burning of Wicked Witch Margaret Hamilton and her stunt double Betty Danko. Seriously, some of the on-set stories from this film are messed up. Well, to hell. This is an urban legend about a group of Siberian engineers who drilled a hole so deep they reached hell. After drilling to a depth of 14.4 kilometers, they allegedly broke through a cavity. A thermal sensor was lowered into the well, along with a microphone. The thermal sensor took a reading of 1000 degrees Celsius, but more disturbing than that were the sounds picked up by the mic, which were now emanating through the speakers. The engineers clamped their hands over their ears to try and block out what they were hearing. The agonizing screams of the damned. There was no doubt in any of their minds that these were the sounds of hell. This story was first reported on in a religious newspaper called Jewels of Jericho, before being picked up by other Christian publications, who either sincerely thought this story was true, or were just trying to convince their readers that there really is a realm of fire below us. Dead Fairy. In 2007, a man named Dan Baines posted some unusual photos on his website. Photos like this. He claimed that a dog walker had found the remains of a strange creature around Farstone Hill in Duffield, Derbyshire. Baines himself said that it was the mummified carcass of a dead fairy, and pointed out the intact ears, wings, hair, skin and teeth. According to Baines, the fairy corpse had been examined by anthropologists and forensic experts, who confirmed that the body was genuine. X-rays had apparently shown that the creature had the same internal makeup as that of a small child, except for the fact that its bones were hollow, like a bird's, making it light enough to fly. Word about this discovery spread, and Baines's website started receiving 20,000 hits a day, with hundreds of fairy believers sending him emails about how they had found something similar too. Here's the thing though. Dan Baines himself was a sculptor and an illusion designer in London. He'd uploaded the images a few days before April Fool's Day, and intended the whole thing to be a prank. He had no idea so many people would genuinely believe his sculpture was an authentic fairy body. On April 1st, he left a comment on his website, declaring the whole thing had been a joke. He wrote, "Even if you believe in fairies, as I personally do, there will always be an element of doubt in your mind that would suggest the remains are a hoax. However, the magic created by the possibility of the fairy being real is something you'll remember for the rest of your life." Some believers refused to accept that fairies weren't real, and said that Baines was just trying to cover up the truth about their existence by releasing false information, thus harming the credibility of fairyists. Baines continued to receive a large volume of emails in the weeks and months following his confession, and said it took him up to 4 hours a day to reply to all of them. In the end, he listed his fairy sculpture on eBay. It sold for £280. CERN Ritual Hoax. CERN is the European Organization for Nuclear Research. They operate the largest particle physics laboratory in the world, home to the Large Hadron Collider and other technical marvels. The organization's main focus is to provide the particle accelerators needed for high-energy physics research, and as such, scientists from all across the world make use of their facilities. Seeing how CERN are at the forefront of cutting-edge technology and research, there have of course been countless theories about what's actually going on there. Some think that CERN are experimenting with time travel. Others blame them for causing earthquakes. Some even believe that the scientists there are opening portals into hell and other dimensions. All of these theories were of course baseless. That is, until 2016, when this found footage video leaked online. The video depicts an occult ritual being performed by CERN employees at the Geneva facility, all of them dressed in black cloaks, gathered around a statue of Shiva. The footage appears to have been captured from a high vantage point by somebody outside the complex. The ominous clip ends with a woman being sacrificed, and a clearly terrified cameraman running from the scene. Theorists had a field day with this one. Rumours already existed about strange activities going on at CERN, and this clip seemed to prove it. So, were the world's greatest minds using the Hadron Collider to summon the Antichrist, or to open up a gateway into another realm? Well, something weird was definitely going on there, because, believe it or not, this video genuinely had been filmed at the CERN facility in Geneva. In the site's main square, in fact, where a statue of Shiva stands as a permanent display. Whoever the people involved were, they must have had access passes. This gave more weight to the clip's authenticity. But even though the footage had been recorded at CERN by people who must have worked there, the organization itself said that the video was pure fiction, made by prankster scientists. A CERN spokeswoman came forward and announced that, quote, "These scenes were filmed on our premises, but without official permission or knowledge. CERN does not condone this type of spoof, which can give rise to misunderstandings about the scientific nature of our work. Every year, CERN welcomes thousands of scientific users from all over the world, and sometimes some of them let their humor go too far. This is what happened on this occasion." She concluded by saying an internal investigation was taking place to figure out which individuals were behind the fake footage. Despite the video being a hoax, a fairly large number of people still believe something sinister is going on at CERN, and that it somehow involves the occult. Just type in CERN ritual onto YouTube and take a look at the comment section of any video. You're bound to find some interesting comments. "Hi Walter, I got a new GF today." Now we're getting to the dark stuff. "Hi Walter, I got a new girlfriend today" is referring to a video on YouTube, originally uploaded in 2009 by 2150 Studios. The re-upload is currently sitting at 1.5 million views. The video starts out normal enough, with a young man sitting alone in a room, talking to the camera. But he's not addressing his entire audience. He's specifically talking to someone called Walter, as if this video was uploaded just for him. The man explains how he had just met the most amazing girl at the mall that day, and describes how he went shopping with her at JCPenney's and a jewelry shop. With a voice that's struggling to hold back excitement, the man says that he brought this girl back to his place. "I know she hates cameras, Walter, but I'm gonna show you her anyways. You ready?" The video suddenly cuts to a different area of the house. We're now in some dingy basement. The man opens a door to reveal a tied-up woman cowering in the corner of a small bathroom, crying and desperately begging for help. The man enters the room and slams the door behind him. The woman screams, and the video ends abruptly. This upload got a lot of people talking. A young woman named Kayla Berg had gone missing at the time the video went live, and some viewers noticed that the girl in the bathroom looked a lot like her. Fearing that this was more than just a joke, several viewers actually contacted the police about the video, and the owners of the YouTube channel were investigated. Kayla's own mother even watched the video, and said, quote, "It sounded like her. Looked like her. It gave me chills." It appeared as if there had just been a massive development in the case. The video started being reported on by the media, and the comment section of the video was now filled with outrage. This prompted the owners of the channel to leave this comment on one of their other videos. "We apologize for any emotional harm caused by Hi Walter, I Got a New Girlfriend Today, produced back in 2009. There was no intention of it resembling any real person or event. The actors involved wish to extend their sympathies to the mother of Kayla Berg, and sincere apologies for the emotional turmoil it caused." So as it turns out, this whole video was just an art piece designed to drum up interest in their YouTube channel. It had nothing to do with Kayla Berg, and it was just a coincidence that the actress resembled her. But imagine seeing this before it was confirmed to be a hoax. I mean, the guy's actually a pretty good actor. He sells the part, and makes you believe that he really is some unhinged, nerdy guy who just snapped one day. The fact that he's addressing some guy called Walter makes the video appear more personal as well, like this was some sort of revenge video. But although this video did turn out to be fake, and the creators obviously didn't intend to cause any harm, a lot of people really thought this was real back in the day, and it's extremely unfortunate that Kayla Berg's mother was amongst them. Disturbing movie Iceberg rumors. The horror cinema Iceberg, aka the disturbing movie Iceberg, has to be one of the most popular charts covered on YouTube. Wendigoon made a very well received video dissecting each of its layers, and I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't already. The Iceberg's exactly what it sounds like: a list of horror movies, ranging from the entertaining to the downright outlawed. The upper layers are filled with the standard horror flicks we all know and love. Saw, Midsummer, that kind of thing, with more obscure and obscene entries in the mid-tiers. But it's the bottom few layers we're concerned with in this one. Some of these titles supposedly contain real-life snuff, and, as Wendigoon himself refers to it, cheese pizza. Several of the Berg's inclusions most certainly do show real death. That much is true. Those, however, are all mixtapes, basically compilations of horrific footage already available on the ClearNet. But a snuff movie isn't just any film with a body in it. They have to include footage of a real-life murder taking place on screen. The entries on this Iceberg that are said to contain real snuff and cheese pizza are, as far as I can tell, only rumoured to exist. They're apparently only available on the dark web. But although you'll find people discussing their existence on forums, a lot of them just seem to be internet urban legends. Don't get me wrong, real horrible stuff is out there, and some of the movies on this Iceberg are very real and very horrible. But the rumours that any of them contain anything illegal appear to be baseless. MalePregnancy.com. This is a vaguely creepy website that's been online since 1999. It details the pregnancy of a Mr. Li Mingwei, the first human male to be with child. The site contains a variety of documentary evidence, news reports, pictures, video clips, EKGs, ultrasound images and the like. Even though it presented itself as real, the site was simply an art project created by a guy named Virgil Wong. Despite obviously being a hoax, Wong said he received thousands of emails from men all around the world who wanted to become male mothers. Chinese baby-eating hoax. Last year, a number of photos began making the rounds on social media sites. Photos like these. They were attached to news articles that claimed, in China, people eat fetuses to improve their health and boost their performance in the bedroom. The photos depicted a man seated at a restaurant table, eating human baby soup, a rare delicacy that apparently costs $4,000 US. In one of the images, he's taking a big bite straight out of the torso. These images sparked outrage online. Chinese users stepped forward to say that the photos were fake, only for them to be lambasted by other users who took the images at face value. In reality, the claim that people in China eat herbal baby soup is nothing but codswallop. And as for the photos, they were actually taken from a performance art exhibition in Shanghai that took place in the year 2000. The artist, Zhu Yu, titled this performance Eating People, and intended for it to be a commentary on human nature and our relationship with the law. The supposed baby was nothing more than a prop, and the rumours about there being rampant and socially acceptable cannibalism going on in China were of course nonsense. Unfortunately, these images were intentionally taken out of context by lowbrow news publications for the sole purpose of causing outrage and increasing traffic to their sites. Even more unfortunately, a lot of people blindly accepted these unverified reports and directed a lot of anger at a lot of innocent people. The Great Donor Show. De Groot Donor Show was a reality TV special that aired on Dutch TV back in 2007. The whole program was like a one-off live game show. It revolved around a terminally ill 37-year-old woman asking questions to 25 contestants. All of these contestants were in desperate need of a life-saving kidney transplant. You can see where I'm going with this. The woman whittled down the contestants until only 3 of them remained. It was then her job to pick a winner. The prize? Her kidneys after she died. During the completely live broadcast, viewers could text in with advice about who the woman should pick as the winner, with all of the proceeds going to the Dutch Kidney Foundation. As you can imagine, there was outrage before the show even aired, and the network received a plethora of complaints during its live broadcast. People were incensed at the idea of a show that was literally a game of life and death. At the end of the show, the presenter revealed that the dying woman was actually an actress, that the whole thing had been staged, but that the contestants really were in desperate need of kidney transplants. The show was made to raise awareness about the low number of organ donors in the Netherlands. Anger quickly turned to understanding, and the day after the special aired, 30,000 donor forms were requested by people throughout Holland. 2 days later, that number was up to 50,000. In the run-up to the show's broadcast, everyone involved had maintained that the show was genuine. Lawrence Drillick, the chairman of the television network that aired the show, later said, "It was very hard to keep this a secret and to tell this lie time after time, but I did it because of the good cause." Of all of the hoaxes on this iceberg, this one undoubtedly made the biggest positive impact. 2016 Clown Sightings. I'm sure we all remember the 2016 clown takeover. This was a phenomenon that lasted for a few months, where there were numerous sightings of people dressed as evil clowns in incongruous places. We're not talking Bobo and Krusty, we're talking Pennywise and Twisty. Most reported sightings were in the USA and UK, though other countries like Canada and Australia were also said to be heavily affected. Basically, you might be on your way home one night, minding your own business, when you'd see a group of killer clowns watching you from a tree line or a school playground. That's creepy enough in itself, but in some of these reported sightings, the clowns actually tormented, chased, or even attacked innocent bystanders. Panic gripped the Western world. People were terrified they might encounter these evil circus performers. Even staying at home didn't feel like a safe option, with reports of clowns randomly going up to houses and tormenting the families inside. A large number of people already had a phobia of clowns to begin with, but that fear had now spread to the formerly unafraid. Embassies started issuing warnings about the clown scare. Clown costumes were being banned left, right, and centre. Even Ronald McDonald was forced to keep a lower profile. And this was a bad time to be a professional clown. Newspapers began stating that the clowns were planning some type of purge event for Halloween. No such purge actually occurred on the 31st, but a family in Florida were attacked by a group of 20 men wearing clown masks. After months of mass clown sightings, the general public had had enough. They took to the streets with baseball bats and other implements, and began actively hunting the clowns down. Not long after that, things seemed to quieten down, and as quickly as the phenomenon started, it had now disappeared. Thus ended the Great Clown Panic of 2016. So despite some people believing that these clowns were really nefarious and trying to lure kids into the woods or what have you, in actuality, it was just a bunch of youngsters dressing up and trying to scare people. I think that much most of us already knew. The reason this entry's even on the list, and so far down for that matter, is because of how few people realize that this was never a widespread occurrence at all. Because of all the reports we heard in the media about clown sightings, we all naturally assumed there must have been hundreds of incidences. The truth is, very, very few of those reports were ever verified. The majority that were investigated turned up no evidence of there ever being any clowns at the supposed location. Many sightings were proven to be outright fakes, and several people were even arrested for falsifying reports. Websites were simply reporting on fake sightings and fake videos for clicks. Newspapers and TV stations picked up on those reports and began perpetuating the narrative. Scaremongering's a great business tactic. Now, don't get me wrong, there were definitely some isolated cases of people dressing up as these killer clowns, but the vast majority began after the media picked up on a non-existent problem, and were nowhere near as prevalent as the news would have had us believe. So there were clowns roaming around in 2016. That much is true. But this wasn't some organized effort, and it didn't happen to the extent that the news had us believing. Polybius. Polybius was, allegedly, an old arcade game that came out in 1981, and only existed for about a month. It appeared in several arcades, exclusively across Portland, Oregon. But despite the title never receiving any marketing, it proved to be an instant hit with the local gamers. Those who played it seemed to immediately become addicted. Lines formed around the other machines, with people getting into fights about whose turn was next. But those who reached the front of the queue unscathed and actually got to play Polybius experienced some unexpected side effects. Seizures, fits of amnesia, insomnia, night terrors and hallucinations, just to name a few. Despite making their lives a living hell, the gamers couldn't stop themselves from playing Polybius. They became almost obsessed with it. Every so often, men dressed in black suits would appear at the arcades and inspect each Polybius machine, and, according to some, they were even seen collecting some unknown data from the cabinets. Not money, data. These men in black were actually CIA operatives tasked with analyzing Polybius's psychoactive effects on its players. You see, Polybius was part of MKUltra, a real-world US government program that experimented on unaware and unwilling members of the public in order to develop mind control techniques. In 1976, the program was exposed and was subsequently shut down, but Polybius was said to be evidence of the program's continuation, proof that they were experimenting on players and sending them subliminal messages. People caught wind of this and wanted to expose what was happening. But just as quickly as the game arrived, it disappeared completely. Overnight, every Polybius arcade machine was gone, never to reappear. In one sense, though, Polybius is alive and well today. It's been included as an Easter egg on The Simpsons, and popular content creators like the Angry Video Game Nerd have done deep dives on it. This Polybius video by Ahoy has reached over 6 million views, so there's clearly still a lot of interest in exploring this legend. But that's all Polybius ever was. A legend. The history of arcade machines has been extensively documented since their inception. There's not a single mention of Polybius in any trade or consumer magazine. The legend itself is believed to have originated in the year 2000 and was probably dreamt up by a guy named Kurt Koller to drive traffic to his website. MKUltra? Real. Polybius? Not so much. That being said, fans of the Polybius legend have developed a hypnotic video game inspired by the myth, designed so that players can experience the old 80s brainwashing game that never really existed. Apollo 20. Apollo 20 refers to a set of internet videos that supposedly show a hibernating, female extraterrestrial. The alien in the footage has since come to be known as Mona Lisa, and is said to have been recovered during the classified Apollo 20 mission of 1976. The videos appeared online in 2007, a full 31 years after the clandestine mission had actually taken place. Retired American astronaut William Rutledge was the man behind the upload, and claimed that he had been the commander of the Apollo 20 mission. According to Rutledge, the top-secret mission had been conducted jointly by the US and the Soviets, and his crewmates were astronaut Leona Snyder and cosmonaut Alexei Leonov. While on their mission, they encountered a disabled spacecraft, which they intercepted and boarded. Inside, they found a female humanoid in stasis. The alien life form, Mona Lisa. In the footage, the crew can be seen examining the extraterrestrial, and even removing her strange facial covering. Rutledge said that the crew took her back to Earth for study, along with some other artifacts they found. Rutledge, who had personally taken the videos and was still in possession of the tapes, believed it was time to get the word out. The videos certainly have a realistic quality about them, and Mona Lisa herself certainly appears lifelike. But the thing is, the Apollo 20 mission never actually happened. It was scrapped after Congress voted to cut NASA's budget, along with Apollo missions 18 and 19. Now that's not going to persuade any contrarians in the audience. They'll just say, well duh, the mission was classified. Of course they're going to say it didn't happen. Yeah, fair enough. But the fact is that this footage has already been thoroughly debunked by amateurs and experts alike. The videos make use of footage from previous NASA missions, spliced together with new footage that, although appearing realistic, has been confirmed to be fake. The final nail in the Apollo 20 coffin is the fact that it was originally uploaded to YouTube on April 1st. It was all just an elaborate, well-executed hoax. Even so, if you go to the comment section of any Apollo 20 video on YouTube, you'll still find loads of people who genuinely believe the footage is real. SpongeBob Brazilian defecation broadcast. So this strange entry purports that there was a lost episode of SpongeBob SquarePants that only ever aired once on TV. That one screening was in Brazil in 2016, just before the Olympics in Rio. What was strange about this episode was that during one scene, Squidward was playing his clarinet when he accidentally hits the brown note. For those who don't know, the brown note is an infrasonic frequency that, when heard, causes the listener to take a trip to Browntown. Apparently this episode actually used that specific frequency, and hundreds of people across Brazil lost control of their bowels at the exact same moment while watching the show. Many of them were so heavily affected that they had to be rushed to hospital. This had some people speculating that the episode had been intentionally weaponized and was being used to intentionally target Brazilians. Understandably, the episode was immediately pulled from the air and never screened again. The reason most people never heard about this incident was because it was quickly covered up by the opening ceremony of the Olympics. Neither the Brazilian government nor the SpongeBob team wanted anyone to hear about what had happened, so they quietly swept it under the rug, or perhaps more fittingly, flushed all the evidence away. Oh, wait a second. What's that sound? Oh, batten down the hatches, everyone, because what you're hearing is the brown note. Apologies if you just lost control of your bowels, but if you did, I can assure you, that's just a coincidence, and it might be worth getting a checkup. That's because the so-called brown note is only hypothetical, and all attempts to demonstrate its existence using sound waves have failed. That's how we know this SpongeBob broadcast never actually happened. It was all a hoax, one that seems to have originated on 4chan. Still, this entry was too funny not to include. Speaking of which, the peanut butter and mayonnaise panic. When you think about foods that pair well with peanut butter, what sort of things spring to mind? Chocolate? Sure. Jam? Definitely. Mayonnaise? Maybe if you're a psycho, but the peanut butter and mayonnaise panic of 1969 doesn't revolve around people eating either of the foodstuff at all. Due to a huge misunderstanding in the late 60s, big newspapers were all of a sudden reporting that teenagers were injecting themselves with peanut butter and mayonnaise. Apparently, by combining those two ingredients, some sort of chemical reaction took place that produced psychedelic effects when inserted straight into the bloodstream. According to some news outlets at the time, it had something to do with the fat globules. Headlines were being printed in papers across the entire USA, and people genuinely started to believe that the youth of America were not only being corrupted by the mind-altering substances of PB and mayo, but dying from this concoction en masse. This concern even reached the highest echelons of government, with references to the panic being present in a 1969 Senate committee report, as well as in Richard Nixon's presidential papers. Yeah, this panic really was a big deal. Now obviously, the only trip you're likely to take if you inject peanut butter and mayonnaise is a trip to the afterlife, and there weren't any medical records of anyone injecting themselves with PB and mayo, so why were the papers reporting that this was such a widespread problem? Well, it all started when two government officials caught wind that students were sharing around a secret underground recipe book. This book apparently described various culinary escapes from reality. One of the recipes was the PB and mayo formula. The media quickly picked up on their claims, and the misinformation spread like wildfire. But it was all just hysteria. Peanut butter and mayo were both slang terms for other substances at the time, and maybe the government officials took that too literally. But where this idea of an underground cookbook came from is anyone's guess. Dig Your Roots / After School Special. We've already touched on the concept of snuff films, but just to recap, they're movies in which a person is genuinely murdered on camera. Though most films purported to be snuff actually turn out to be fakes, There are real, authentic movies that show people being killed. These films are then sold on the black market, usually for large sums of money. They're quite hard to find, because, for obvious reasons, their creators are only selling to a very specific clientele on very specific, hidden platforms. But some of them have been leaked and shared around in the past. Last year, a rumour started spreading about a new snuff film that had found its way onto the ClearNet. The original upload on Bescore had been titled After School Special, but people were now referring to it as Dig Your Roots. Here's how one viewer described it. 2 adults viciously stab 2 kids to death in a bedroom. A third person films the whole thing. The victims look to be about 10 or so. I think they're inside one of the boys' bedrooms, because it looks like a kid's bedroom. There's a black and white poster on the wall for some country band that features a couple of toddlers and says, Dig Your Roots. That's how the video got its name. Dig Your Roots is the 3rd studio album by country music duo Florida Georgia Line. So in forum conversations about dark internet videos, the Dig Your Roots video started being mentioned from time to time. Most people didn't claim to have actually seen it, but had heard this description from other users. And because it kept getting brought up, everyone thought that it really did exist. I mean, it was certainly conceivable. From 3 Guys, 1 Hammer to the infamous Funky Town video, snuff does occasionally pop up on certain dark websites. Dig Your Roots, however, doesn't exist. It was all a hoax, perpetrated again by 4chan. There was a small thread where people were proposing titles for fake, lost media, then asking others to come up with concepts based on the name. They'd then try and trick non-4chan users into believing that these fake videos were actually real, basically spreading believable lies and rumours to see what would stick. From there, gullible people would spread the rumours around for them. For example, one of the titles the OP proposed was Channing Tatum Death Footage. Another user chimed in with his idea about what to spread. Channing Tatum Death Footage. Aftermath war footage of some dude that kind of looks like Channing Tatum. His head is mashed, so it's not like you can tell he really looks like him. Another person in the thread said that this spreading of fake info really does work, and claimed to have been the person who came up with the despair code, a concept that's been covered by loads of YouTubers at this point. In amongst all these replies was the idea for digyourroots.mov. So yeah, thankfully this video doesn't exist. If this whole thread proves anything, it's that we should constantly be questioning what we hear from strangers online. Hundreds of people may tell you something does or doesn't exist, and they may genuinely believe what they're telling you is true. But if they have bad, or perhaps zero evidence to back up their claims, they're most likely just the victim of disinformation themselves. Ask questions, demand verifiable proof, and don't be like them. 3 orangutans, 1 blender. 3 orangutans, 1 blender refers to a rare online video that few people have ever seen, but those who have watched it say it's one of the most disturbing clips in existence. Rumours about 3 orangutans started spreading all the way back in 2008, when YouTuber Damanico uploaded the first ever reaction video to it. In the years that followed, many, many more reactions to 3 orangutans were uploaded to YouTube. In all of them, the reactor appears disgusted by what they're seeing. The same hip-hop music can be heard in the background of each reaction, along with the same screaming ape noises, suggesting that all of these reactors were watching the same video. As for what the footage is actually of, the most famous account comes from a guy called Roberto Martinez. He made an extremely long post about the contents of the video, so I'll just give the SparkNotes version here. 3 orangutans, 1 blender is a real video that can now be found on the dark web. It was published during 2006, but wasn't found until later. Here's what it is. So the music makes it sound like it's okay, but the video is horrifying. In the video, there are these Indian or Brazilian army men wearing yellowish, greenish camouflage. They walk into a building and take beaten, damaged, caged orangutans and brutally cut them up with machetes, then begin pouring bleach and what looks like lemon juice all over them before shoving them into this weird machine that is definitely not a blender. It's this big machine that has blades that spin like a blender, but it's not. The machine has no roof, but it has a balcony with rails that circle around the top, and 2 steel platforms on both sides above the machine, going across to the other side like a bridge. Whatever it is, it brutally slices some of the orangutans into a bloodbath of pieces, while leaving some still alive, screaming in agony and pain, while some of the men are laughing. Then, this fat guy in a yellow camouflage ski mask comes inside the machine and uses a chainsaw to butcher 6 of them. They take the last 3 male orangutans and walk them into a cabin-like shelter where there are 3 tigers waiting. They have the tigers slowly eat and rip off the private parts of these orangutans. They throw the orangutans on the ground, taking turns pouring some lemon juice on them, before brutally butchering them while laughing, and throwing the pieces of their carcasses back into the machine and slicing it all up. The video ends there. I think the only reason it's called 3 orangutans, 1 blender is because only 3 of them last to the end. The video was so gruesome that it became harder to find on the ClearNet. You can also see that there are human remains inside the machine with the orangutans. There are 97 men and 19 orangutans counted in the video. Some of the men are shirtless, showing off their tattoos. It's so messed up, you'll wish those guys were dead. Also, all of the men have a strange symbol on their hats or shoulders. The video appears to take place at a camp in the middle of the jungle during the afternoon, with trucks, sheds, and cabins in the background. The original video was 3 hours long and didn't have music, but the video you'll find is only 1 minute and 50 seconds long, and has a weird hip-hop beat that covers everything except for the screams of the orangutans and the sound of the machine. Even though the video was posted in 2006, it has a 70s, 80s, or 90s quality. I'm guessing the real thing took place decades ago. Anyways, you're welcome. But seriously, don't watch it. Okay, so that's some extremely disturbing imagery. But you'll be happy to hear that no matter how hard you try, you'll never actually be able to track this video down. That's because 3 orangutans, 1 blender is a myth, just like the baby burger video it's based off. No such clip exists. All of the reaction videos to it simply made use of the same beat, giving the illusion that the clip actually existed. Roberto's account of the video was just him playing along with the hoax too. In fact, there are plenty of accounts about what this video actually contains, and they all say something different. As dark as some of those fake stories are, my personal favourite is that it's just a video of someone preparing a smoothie for 3 excited orangutans. Kind of wholesome. Andreas Balminas, snuff film. This last stop on our tour takes us back to February of 2013. Andreas Balminas was a Latvian man living in the UK. Police in Lancashire received a tip from the Russian Interior Ministry that Balminas was in possession of illegal video material. This tip turned out to be legit. They raided his apartment and found countless messed up videos from Japan, Russia, and various other countries. But one of them stood out in particular. A 20-minute home movie featuring a blonde girl about 14 years of age. This footage disturbed even the most seasoned of officers. In the video, the girl begged a man who wasn't Balminas for her life. The unknown man ignored her pleas and strangled her with a wire, causing her to foam at the mouth and her eyes to roll back into her head. "It's the worst thing I've seen by a country mile," said Detective Constable Edward Wenham. In the footage, a man in his 40s was decorating. He had a goatee beard, and you could see his face quite clearly. The young girl came into the room and asked him for some money. It was apparent that the man was either her father or stepfather. The man began to shout obscenities. Then he strangled her. After that, he laid out a clear plastic sheet and laid the body in it, then wrapped it tightly around her. It took about 3 minutes for this. My firm belief is that she was definitely killed. The judge who sentenced Balminas agreed that while it was difficult to be certain that the girl had perished on camera, she most likely had. Still, there was no evidence that Balminis was involved in the making of the video, so he only received 8 months behind bars for possessing it, as well as for possessing numerous other sick material. Investigators began looking for any clues to the girl's identity. Judging by her accent, she was American, but that's about the only thing they had to go on, other than her face, and the face of the man who had killed her. They'd hit a wall. For 15 months, they took no further action. They didn't even send the video to the CEOP or to any US agencies to run through their powerful facial recognition software. When UK government ministers heard about that, they said there had been a massive failure in policing. Labour MP Tom Watson said, "If the view of the judge and police in this case is true, then Britain's police have sat on evidence of a child murder for over a year. It's negligent and scandalous that the utmost urgency has not been applied with this case. The Americans should have immediately been informed, and the NCA should have picked up the investigation." There was public outrage that so little had been done to ID the perp or the victim. As a result, the video was passed along to the CEOP for further inspection. Okay, so this is the part of the breakdown where I confirm the girl and the man were just actors, right? Well, here's why I've saved this entry for last. I've looked all over, but I can't find any definitive proof online that this was a hoax. All of the write-ups and articles I've read about this case end there, with the video being passed along to more specialized authorities, but there's no mention of the film being confirmed fake. If it was real, it seems weird that the killer would happily appear on screen without a mask. That's a big risk. Then again, in other confirmed snuff films that have come to light, there have been killers who have shown their face. Not to mention, every officer who viewed the footage said it was extremely realistic and made them sick to their stomachs. I was convinced that this was not acting and that the girl was dead, reiterated DC Wenham. If she had been play acting when the plastic was wrapped around her face, she wouldn't have been able to keep so still. If it was acting, it was better than an Oscar-winning performance. Her eyes didn't blink or move at all. So this hoax's Iceberg actually ends on a potentially dark note. Maybe this was an authentic snuff film after all. If so, both the girl and the perp remain unidentified, and the film that features her final starring role has yet to be leaked on the ClearNet. Sadly, with guys like Balminis in this world, there'll always be a market for this sort of thing. I know we've talked a lot about hoaxes today, but that's the reality we all live in. Whew, and that's it. The end of this abridged hoax's Iceberg. I hope you enjoyed this special episode, and I'd personally like to wish you all a very happy Halloween. Before the video ends, I'd also like to thank all of my supporters here on YouTube and over on Patreon, especially my biggest supporters. The Nuon Goem 24, Lydia Glassley, Thomas the Handsome, Alex Greensall, Azriel Warakai, Charlie Lackey, Connor Lothan, Crawford K. MacDonald, Event Horizon Records, Gina Valera, Grace Archie, Infamous Sempapi, Leonardo Martinez, Mackenzie Griffin, Maria Mendez, Myra Lancaster, Monica Mendoza, Natalie Escobedo, Palmyra, Peter Loggerach, Philip Westra, Procupidine Natter, Ronnie Franklin, Sarah Ramirez, Silas Geist, Taylor and Monica Gruenk, The Only Dorita, Zane, Miss Crypto, Damien Bennett, Hungry and Hammered, The Deck of Cards, and TNS MOM. Thank you guys so much for your continued support, it really helps the channel out. Remember to smash that like button or I'll smash you, and you'll be hearing from me again in November. Until then, you all stay spooky. And remember, the best things happen in the dark. Number 1. It's rare to catch footage of a serial killer in action. They're usually the methodical type. But that's exactly what happened in this first mystery, which was solved thanks to a CCTV camera. Between 2009 and 2010, a serial killer plagued the streets of Bradford, England. During his year-long spree, he took the lives of 3 women. His weapon of choice? A crossbow. But for this depraved individual, killing his victims wasn't quite enough. He had to consume parts of them as well, leading to the media dubbing him the crossbow cannibal. He was first brought to the police's attention when 2 prostitutes in the local area disappeared. They were suspected to have been murdered. Initially, the authorities were left stumped. There was an eccentric man around town called Stephen Griffiths. He was known to frequent the prostitutes. What was so eccentric about him? He used to take his pet lizard for walks around town on a leash, wearing a long leather coat and sunglasses, regardless of the weather. Sure, he was very different, but nobody thought he was dangerous. By all accounts, he seemed polite and friendly. Everyone who knew him was completely oblivious to the twisted hobby he had taken up. Oblivious, that is, until the crossbow cannibal made one fatal mistake, which was captured by the camera in his apartment corridor. A stupid mistake really, but one we can all be thankful he made, especially after looking at the images that were captured on the night of his final kill. Here we see Griffiths, the crossbow cannibal, outside his block of flats with a woman called Susan Blamars. The 2 of them are chatting casually. To any onlookers, nothing would have seemed out of the ordinary. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary to Susan either. The pair enter the building and continue to talk in the elevator. Griffiths appears tense in the footage, but tries to play things cool. Susan still doesn't sense that anything's wrong. They reach his floor, and Susan follows him into his apartment. A decision that's about to cost her her life. A mere 2.5 minutes after entering, Susan frantically bursts back through the door, running for her life. Griffiths is in hot pursuit. You can just about make out the crossbow in his hands. He grabs her. If you've ever wondered what the face of a man ready to kill looks like, that's it. Seconds later, he shoots Susan in the head with a crossbow bolt. The crossbow cannibal's 3rd victim is dead. The thrill of the hunt passes, and Griffiths retires to his flat, dragging his victim's lifeless body inside with him. 20 minutes later, he returns to the hallway, brandishing his beloved weapon. He taunts his audience, sticking his middle finger up at the camera. Arrogant, remorseless, psychopathic. He no longer appears to care whether he's captured or not. In the past, Griffiths had been able to kill his victims before they even had a chance to flee. Susan might not have been able to save her own life, but by forcing Griffiths to kill her on camera, she ensured that his rampage was now over. The block managers themselves suspected that Griffiths was up to no good. That's why they had the cameras installed in the first place, to keep an eye on him. Well, their actions solved the case, and once they checked the footage, they were able to inform the police immediately. Griffiths was in cuffs within the hour. Susan's body was found dumped in a nearby lake, along with his 2nd victim's, whose body had been chopped into 81 pieces. Yeah, 81. Her head was fished out. The features had been removed. His first victim's corpse has still never been found to this day, in pieces or otherwise. At his trial, Griffiths introduced himself as the crossbow cannibal and confessed that he had indeed murdered the 3 women. He then described how he dismembered them in his bathtub and cooked and ate parts of their bodies. Finally, he told the court how he took the remaining chunks he didn't want to eat, bagged them up, and chucked them into the lake. It was also revealed that he had been harassing his ex-girlfriend over the phone, threatening her and laughing maniacally.
I'm not going to go away, so I guess you'd better.
As it stands, Griffiths has only been conclusively connected with 3 murders, but he's suspected of killing at least 5 others as well. The only person he's tried to kill since being arrested is himself. He's had little success with that, having failed multiple times. He'll remain in prison for the rest of his life, and the streets are safer for it. The part I find most chilling about these images is how he just goes from normal and friendly to psychopathic. He becomes a rage-filled murderer within an instant. Seeing him talk casually to this woman, knowing full well that he plans on killing her within moments, it's truly disturbing. I've left a link to a news story about the case down in the description. It shows parts of the footage and discusses the case a little more. Feel free to check it out. Number 2. Well, it wouldn't be a lazy Masquerade mystery video if we didn't have at least a few more creepy doe reconstructions. Those artist depictions of unidentified bodies. Oh, I just love digging deep into the uncanny valley. A lot of people wonder why the reconstruction artists make their subjects look so inhuman. I mean, surely they'd want to make them look as close as how they looked in reality as possible, right? Well, actually, the opposite is true. By making the images too realistic, they run the risk of making the victim look like any other generic person. If the picture they create could literally be anyone, then it wouldn't stay fresh in people's minds, or might not catch the attention of someone who actually knew the victim. Instead, the police intentionally accentuate certain distinguishing features about the dead person. For example, this woman. From her body, the police could tell that she had a very crooked neck. Sure, it's very creepy, but it stays in your head and makes you think if you know anyone who had a crooked neck. In this way, the images are more likely to ring a few bells. When the police released this image of a Jane Doe in 2012, you might have thought it was unlikely anyone would have recognized the woman. It's barely recognizable as human to begin with. Looks more like something you'd see in a particularly creepy episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog. At the time, she was known only as Suitcase Body. Police had found the half-decomposed corpse of a young woman stuffed into a suitcase along a Wisconsin highway. Judging from how decomposed she was, she must have been dead for at least a year. They had absolutely no leads, nor any idea of who she was. What they did know was that she had a very chipmunk-like face. So, that's what they asked their artist to highlight in this reconstruction. Their hope was that it might help solve the mystery of who she was, and, in turn, reveal who left her in the suitcase. Amazingly, this creepy image served its purpose. The Jane Doe, known only as Suitcase Body, was actually 19-year-old Jenny Gamez from Cottage Grove, Oregon. You might not see the likeness. I know I couldn't. But the reconstruction was enough to draw the attention of Jenny's foster mother, Lorraine. She hadn't heard from Jenny in a good long while. Jenny had moved away, but it still seemed strange that she had cut off all contact. Police checked Jenny's dental records, which confirmed that the body in the suitcase was indeed hers. Over a year after her murder, Suitcase Body had finally reclaimed her identity. Sadly, Jenny wasn't her killer's only victim. On the same stretch of highway, another suitcase was found, this one containing another woman's body. This victim's identity wasn't so hard to trace. She was Laura Simonson, a 37-year-old from Farmington, Minnesota. So who was responsible for all of this? Well, it took them a while to crack the case, but eventually, the police were led to the home of the killer. Stephen Zelich, an ex-cop. While an officer in West Alice, he abused his powers by stalking women in the area and gaining access to their personal information. He resigned in 2001 to avoid disciplinary action. That way, he could still go on to become a private security officer. He met both Jenny and Laura in online BDSM chat rooms under the username Mr. Handcuffs. On separate occasions, he convinced both of them to meet him in his hotel room. Then they engaged in what Zelich called breath play, a dangerous sex game involving strangulation. The girls were bound and gagged, with a rope tied around their necks. He then pulled on the rope to asphyxiate them, something that gave him a sense of erotic satisfaction. Both women died so that this guy could get off. He then kept their bodies hidden in his refrigerator for months, and then eventually dumped them. In court, he claimed that both of their deaths had been accidental. Right, because if you accidentally killed someone in this way, you'd dump their body off in a suitcase and do it all over again. The jurors saw through this poor attempt at avoiding responsibility. He was found guilty of their murders, and will remain in prison until the day he dies. Number 3. Another case of an online predator now. This was actually an urban legend that circulated around the Kansas City area. Amazingly, it turned out to be completely true. It was the mid-90s, when the internet was still relatively new. A lot of people had heard about a guy named Slave Master. He had apparently been hanging around in online chat rooms, seducing women and luring them to their deaths. Little did everyone realize that the Slave Master rumors were more than just hogwash. Over the course of the decade, numerous women who browsed social networking sites in the area had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The one thing that linked them all together was that they'd all been in contact with Slave Master prior to vanishing. His first online victim, Sheila Faith, believed that Slave Master was a wealthy businessman and philanthropist. Apparently, he had offered to pay for her daughter's spina bifida medical expenses. The mother and daughter moved out to Kansas City to take him up on his offer. Shortly after arriving, the pair of them disappeared. For the next 7 years, the elusive Slave Master cashed in Sheila's pension checks. Then came the turn of the Polish immigrant, Izabela Lewinka. Slave Master convinced the 21-year-old that he was going to marry her. Instead, he got her to sign a 115-item slave contract, giving him complete control over most aspects of her life, including her bank accounts. Not long after signing this agreement, Isabella also vanished into thin air. Slave Master told his real-life friends that she'd been caught smoking marijuana and had consequently been deported. Finally, he met a woman called Suzette Troughton on a BDSM site. She had agreed to travel the world with Slave Master as his submissive slave. What makes people want to do things like this? I have no idea. But whatever the reason, Suzette suffered the same fate as her predecessors. Slave Master then sent letters to her mother, pretending to be Suzette, saying how well the trip was going. So, what had Slave Master been doing with all of these women? Well, unfortunately for him, the world was soon going to find out. He had become cocky and complacent, and failed to effectively cover his tracks. He was developing quite the reputation online, and his online alias was being linked to more and more suspicious activity. Eventually, it led police right to Slave Master's front door. Still, they needed a warrant to search the place. It just so turns out that a woman suspected the occupant of stealing some of her sex toys. Perfect. That gave the police the excuse they needed. The house belonged to a man called John Edward Robinson. In his house, they found the decaying bodies of Isabella and Suzette, stuffed into 85-pound chemical drums. they had died from blunt force trauma to the back of the head. In acid-filled drums in a nearby storage facility, they found the bodies of Sheila, Sheila's daughter, Debbie, and another woman identified as Beverly Bonner. You see, before discovering the internet, Robinson had already started his killing spree. In the case of Beverly, he had convinced her to leave her husband and come and work for him in Kansas. Once Robinson had arranged for her alimony checks to be sent to his address, Beverly's family never heard from her again. It was all to do with money. Perhaps the most chilling thing he did, however, was gain the trust of a young mother called Lisa Stasi, who he had met at a battered woman's refuge. As you can imagine, Lisa met the same fate as Robinson's other victims. However, Robinson knew that his brother and sister-in-law were having trouble trying to adopt a baby. He told them that he knew a child whose mother had just committed suicide. He sent them some forged adoption papers, charged them $5,500, and handed them the 4-month-old baby of the woman he had just killed no more than 3 days earlier. Lisa's body was never discovered. Robinson is believed to be linked to the disappearance of even more women, though none of their bodies have ever been found either. Perhaps he dissolved them in the chemical drums. Regardless, Slave Master was found guilty of his crimes and remains on death row to this day. He is regarded as the internet's first serial killer. Number 4. It's everyone's worst nightmare. You come home by yourself from a long day at work and enter your dark, empty house. Only, it's not as empty as you were expecting. On the night of September 6th, 2006, Susan Kuhnhausen got back from her long shift at the hospital, walked through her front door, and into her bedroom. Strange, she thought. The room isn't usually this dark. Wait, did I forget to open the curtains this morning? From behind the door, a man appeared. A man she had never seen or spoken to before. His name's Edward Dalton Haffey, and he's holding a black claw hammer. What this guy didn't realize was that Susan Kuhnhausen was a badass. Fight or flight immediately kicks in. She had seen and dealt with a lot of shit as a nurse, so her instinct wasn't to run. On top of that, she had been trained in self-defense and knew that crowding the guy would lessen the impact of his hammer swings. So, she gets close. Wham! The hammer strikes her in the left temple, but the would-be killer can't generate enough force to take her down. She's dazed and bloody, but getting close had worked. Susan knows that she's fighting for her life at this point. Anyone that aims for the head with a hammer is aiming to kill. She tries to reason with him, but Haffey won't listen. He's hellbent on taking her out. Now she tries to use her superior weight to knock him down, but he manages to push her away. "You're strong," he says, the only words he uttered the whole encounter. It's then that Susan managed to wrestle the hammer out of her assailant's hands. She takes it and slams it into his head several times in quick succession. Haffey goes down, but he manages to grab the hammer back. That's when Susan grabbed him by the throat and began strangling him. His face turns purple. Terrified, she makes for the exit. But Haffey isn't dead. Susan doesn't know it, but he's got a near-lethal amount of cocaine in his system. Nothing's gonna slow him down. He grabs her as she tries to escape and punches her in the face twice, knocking her to the ground. As he stood over her, brandishing his claw hammer, Susan knew that she was as good as dead. But the fighter inside her triumphed. Susan chose a life over death. She somehow manages to get him on the ground with her and puts him in a chokehold. She screams at him, demanding to know why he was trying to kill her. "Tell me," she says. "Tell me, and I'll call you an ambulance." Eventually, his face turns purple again. This time, permanently. She had strangled Haffey to death. An ambulance was called and statements were taken. It was obvious that Susan had acted in self-defense. The question remained, however. Why had Haffey decided to kill Susan that evening? As it turns out, the question that the police should have been focusing on was who had sent him. You see, Haffey was a hitman. He was paid $50,000 to sneak into Susan's house and beat her to death. When the police searched the crime scene, they didn't find anything that might reveal the identity of whoever hired Haffey. It wasn't until one of Susan's friends came over to her place and noticed an out-of-place backpack in her basement that the crime was finally solved. Inside the backpack was a container of Hershey's syrup, $200 in cash, diabetes pills, and a notebook containing a cell number. Next to it, Haffey had written, "Call Mike." Mike, that was Susan's husband. Her estranged husband, to be precise. The pair had been separated for a while at this point, and since their breakup, Mike hadn't been doing so well for himself. He'd lost his job at the local adult video store and had no place to live. But he and Susan were still technically married. If she were to suddenly catch a bad case of having her brains bashed in, he'd inherit the house. So he made a deal with Haffey, a former co-worker at the porno shack. Kill his so-called bitch of a wife, sell the house, and earn a sixth of the place's value, $50 large. Mike still had a spare key to Susan's, and knew all of the alarm codes. If all went well, there'd be nothing to link him to the crime. It was perfect. What he didn't plan on, though, was his Vietnam vet hitman being killed by his former partner. Down at the station, he came up with a half-assed alibi, but the police weren't buying it. He got 7 years in jail, but died of cancer on Friday the 13th of June, 2014, only 92 days before he was due to be released. If this incident teaches us anything, it's that love can be a dangerous game, especially when you fall out of it and there's money on the line. Thankfully, Susan survived her ordeal. "If you can't run and you can't hide, you have to fight," she said. "You don't know that you won't survive." Hey guys, Lazy here, and thank you very much for listening. Sorry for the long wait for this video. Kind of went to a nightclub and hurt my ears a bit, so now that my hearing's fully restored again, I can get back to recording. Thank you all very much for your patience. I hope you all had a very good Christmas, haven't spoken to you since then, and a great new year as well. Hopefully 2018 brings us more fictional spooks rather than real life ones. But we'll see. Either way, I'll keep churning out the videos. If you did enjoy this video, then be sure to smash that like button or I'll smash you. And I'll be back again, hopefully very soon, with some more spooky content for you all. Until then, guys, stay spooky. And remember, the best things happen in the dark.